Is it fair to say that this falls into the must-win category in terms of the title hopes?
Yeah, I think it does. You know, we're hugely disappointed that it's not in our hands right now, but there's nothing we can do about that. You know, these games are always massive. Each one's going to be huge now from now to the end of the season, so it's no different to what it's been the last few. It's just getting a lot closer now, and we've got to make sure that we're doing everything we can to take 3 points.
These are the kind of games that normally can be quite defining in a season, but with Celtic kind of way back in the league and yourselves, as you say, it's not in your own hands. Is it quite a strange situation to be in? Yeah,
it is, but I think you can still see one result the other way changes the whole complexity of it all again. So we've got to make sure that we're really, really staying on track and doing what we need to do, because, as I say, one result can change the whole outcome of the whole dynamic. So we've got to concentrate on ourselves. We've got to know, you know, we've got to beat a very good Celtic team. They seem to be hitting a run of form again. You know, watch their last game back against City, and if it wasn't just for a couple of errors, it wasn't that too far off. You know, it's not, the scoreline doesn't probably reflect the game as a whole. So we've got to make sure that we're keeping on track. We know Celtic are a very good team that are going to be very hard to play against, and these games always bring up something different anyway.
I guess it was a real positive response from the City defeat to what you did against Motherwell at the weekend, but you'd be expecting a kind of a tougher challenge, no disrespect to Motherwell, would you, on Sunday?
Yeah, absolutely. We knew that Motherwell was going to be a tough test, because you look at previous results against them, there only seems to be really us that put more than 4 past them. You know, when we can play well, we do really play well against Motherwell. We needed one of those performances. We needed it to click. We needed to make sure that we were putting some things right that we hadn't done really well. And those can go one or two ways. You know, if you don't have that performance against Motherwell, it can seep into this week. Luckily enough, it didn't. We managed to get the performance and the result. So you know, we've got a couple of things to work on this week. We've got a few injuries that's put us, you know, back a little bit. So we've got a few things to look at, and we've got to make sure that we're digging down and trying to get the result on Sunday.
Joe, it's been a very dramatic season so far. Do you think there's still plenty of twists in the tail to come?
It seems to be that way. I think if you're going off the tail of the season, then you definitely think that. But I think Hibs have been super consistent. You know, they've not really messed up too many times. They've been the team that's just stayed there and thereabouts for a long time. So they're deserving of the position that they're in. We've just got to hope that if they are going to mess up, it's going to be this weekend.
If you look at that game with Hibs, obviously looking ahead to the potential final day showdown at the end of the season, how important is that being at Ibrox for you?
Well, I thought it would have been important for us being at Ibrox against City, and that didn't work out for us. So that's something that we've got to look at ourselves and our own mentality and the way that we're attacking those games. A lot wasn't right for us on that day, but it brings a whole different dynamic to it when it's the last game of the season, and what that looks like. It's a little bit like cup finals, isn't it? All or nothing. So you know, we've got good history in that department, but who's to say what that's going to look like this year? We've just got to make sure we're staying really consistent in our messages, consistent in what we're doing, and really trying to push on now, because there's no time for a slip up.
There is a potential of a cup double. If you were to do that and miss out in the league, is that still success for you this season?
It's difficult to say at this moment in time, because you know how close we were last year. But I think, you know, to win any trophy at this club is definitely a success, and especially with how competitive it's been this year and the amount of clubs that are competing for that top spot. I think it's a lot more difficult to do that this year than what it has been in previous years. That's not to say that we don't want to win everything. So if we was to win a cup double, that'd be great. It would be successful in terms of winning trophies, because that's what we want to do. But I think in the position that we have been in this league, we'd still feel a little bit let down on ourselves if we didn't win that league title.
What do you do as a manager when the games are whittling down to keep that belief amongst the squad?
Yeah, we've just got to make sure that we keep pushing those messages of what we're good at. As I've always said to you, we don't shy away from the things that we haven't done very well. We work on them, we get in here and we look at the film, we get on the training pitch and we try to put it right. We've just got to make sure that we're bringing it more often than not. You can't slip up that many times and expect to be sat at the top of the table. So, you know, it's learnings that we've got to take forward. We've got to pick up quicker than what we have done. But I've also not got to forget that we've got to still install confidence into this group, because it's a really big week. You know, you're going into the last week of the season playing 3 very big games. So we've got to install a lot of confidence. We've got to make sure that we get that message right with the players, and we've got to be right at it from minute one.
How does the dynamic change when it is out of your hands and you are chasing it? And does that bring a different type of pressure going into these last couple of games?
I mean, it can do. You know, that feeling was awful last year going into the last game of the season when we were playing Thistle and Celtic were playing Hibs. I didn't like it at all. It's not a nice feeling, and it's not in your hands. It can bring a different dynamic and take a little bit of pressure off, I suppose, but that's not the way that we want to be sat. We want to make sure we're in our own control of our own destiny, but it's not to be. So we've got to make sure that we're looking at what we're doing, and we've got full focus on Celtic on Sunday.
And there's enough riding on a Rangers Celtic game as it is, but when it's must win for you, how do you make sure the players manage that pressure properly?
Well, I think that comes every time we play Celtic anyway. I don't think that ever changes, you know, whether you're first and second in the league, third and fourth, however that looks. When you're playing a Rangers Celtic game, it's always a must-win game for both teams. So that dynamic doesn't really change in an Old Firm, which I think brings its own entity to the league anyway. So both teams will be wanting to win that game.